All right. Hello and welcome to a bittersweet moment. This is our last review session in your playbook series experience for Empower Me. It's the network dot a lot. All right. And I wish that sounded a little bit more, with fanfare, but I mean it.
Oh,
Network
woo!
a lot.
Jazz
Woo!
hands.
Jazz hands. Here we go. As we've gone through this, I've done some shameless plugging about each topic and the interrelationship and how they apply to each of us as we move through the experience of the playbook. And if you guys have been with us all along, I hope too that you heard that in the last two review sessions and the last two topics in the playbook, we shift from kind of an internal self-discovery and of who you are and what you have and what you project out into the world to some more action-oriented pieces for folks who want to start applying all of this newfound discovery and knowledge. And so last month we talked a lot about resumes and the part and the role that they play. And so for this final piece too is now how do you project out and start building a network that allows you to both grow internally and externally promote your brand and start to leverage your connections. So I'm really excited to bring this for you. It is different, much like the resume session from our previous sessions, where it's not a freestyle jam. More so, there are some slides I've got to put in front of you so that you can kind of see this topic and concept from a visual perspective. So, I beg your patience. I will be putting mostly slides in here, but as we progress through, there are areas for us to jump in, have those great conversations, and then at the end, we'll do a Q&A. Sound good?
Yep.
Sounds good.
You guys are
Yep.
good. Thank you so much. All right. I love you guys. Here we go. We're going to get started. And I'll start off with this quote here. If somebody could read that for me, I'd be really grateful.
You are never. Oh, wait, hold on. One more try. You are not ever a genius all by yourself. Your ideas are a function of the people you are connected with. Carol Dweck?
I will go with Carol Dweck. It's really good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for reading that. So now the question for everyone is, what is that actually saying to you? When you hear that or you've read that, what does it say to you individually?
You need people around you.
Okay. You need people around you.
A good support system actually helps generate more ideas, is what
Yeah.
I think of.
Okay. Yeah.
The people that you keep in your company are also your biggest advocates.
I like that. I like that too.
You don't come up with all the answers. Most of it is generated by talking it through.
I'm a big fan of that. I don't have any answers. I have to go talk it through.
Me
And
too.
I steal shamelessly from those folks, like Greg did with his joke this morning. So, no, I'm sorry, Greg. So I want you guys to kind of imprint this quote. This is the quote as we move through and understand what networking truly is. It's that inner kind of id piece. But I also would tell you that if you have ever kind of looked out and said, boy, that person is really successful, that person really seems to have it all together, also then know that that person has achieved what they have achieved and has attained what they have attained um, through a network. All right, through a network. And so then when you begin to kind of realize that you are not alone, but you should also really kind of self assess, have I been trying to do it alone? And that's probably a big portion of why you may have struggled. All right, so we're good. You guys have imprinted this quote. Let's move on and talk about why network. So if someone also would be so kind and just kind of read off the 7 bullet points there for why network.
So why network? 1, strengthen business connections. Networking is about sharing, not taking. 2, get fresh ideas. 3, raise your profile. 4, advance your career. 5, job opportunity access. 6, get career advice and support. And finally, 7, build confidence.
Sound about right?
Yep.
Nothing here.
100%.
Yeah, like, well, oh, I didn't know anything about advance your career, man. This is great. I'm glad I showed up, Red. Thank you so much. Sounds about right, right? I mean, in principle, I believe everyone kind of gets it, Red. If you talk about network, I have a functional understanding of network. So it's good for us to kind of at least start from that kind of platform of understanding. Now I'm going to share an image with you that, and again, I love doing this presentation and just having really kind of Greg in my hip pocket. But between the two of us at stages of careers, we just get such an opportunity to talk to so many people. But and what I would tell you is that a lot of conversations, especially when we talk about careers, whether you're coming into a company for the first time or really looking to move your career within a company, that the overwhelming kind of thought was, I thought I'd land a job primarily through my resume,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And
That's not true.
well, not entirely true because the resume is so
Right.
important.
Yep.
But what folks don't understand is maybe the spatial relationship to the other things that help folks move along. So let's put another graphic up on the screen. Now drink that in, right? Tell me what jumps out at you.
Network.
Hmm.
What about that network? And what color would you say that is?
Huge. It's a huge slice. It is lime, by the
Thank
way.
you so much. Greg, are you taking notes?
It's Pac-Man.
I think somebody
hungry.
preset that answer up.
Last night, Greg called it pea green, and I took offense. I don't know. I was like,
Oh,
that's more like it.
jeez.
Um,
That's a weird looking pea.
but
Hmm.
let me ask you: does this kind of surprise you as far as that kind of portion of the overall pie?
In a
You
way,
know,
yes. In a way, no.
Give me your in a way yes, and then we'll talk about the in a way no.
How much it is part of that pie with the network is definitely a surprise, but okay. After 17 years of not having a network in behind me and still not being promoted, it doesn't surprise me.
And I love that. Thank you so much. If we were being honest and I gave you this complete circle and I said, hey, tell me not what you think is important, but what part of the pie does network play in your current progress and your current kind of journey and path?
Mhm.
Would any of us have put that sort of representation together?
Oh no.
I feel it would be because sometimes it is all in who you know.
But
right.
that's projecting. I'm asking, like right
Okay,
now, Miss
gotcha.
Christie, do
Okay,
you
gotcha.
have a
Yep.
network that represents that kind of
No, God, no,
space,
no,
right? Okay.
no. Yes,
And,
okay,
and
gotcha.
I tell you, before someone took me in hand and helped develop me, I had the same, I would tell you, I had the same kind of piece. I could talk about a network. I could very generally talk about a few key people. But if I had to put it down in the swath of things, most of mine was my resume and me really trying to leverage my past experience, right? Trying to be, you know, those two things to get me noticed, to get me, access. So remember the quote: no person is not ever a genius by themselves. Knowing what a network is fundamentally and knowing now the spatial relationship to some of these key pieces will help you as you consider what you will do with your own personal network. Okay. So now I'm going to take you to um, 4 key guide points when establishing your network. Here we go. There are 4 key guide points: analyze, delayer, diversify, and capitalize. All right. So let's break these down a little bit. I've got some sub bullets there. Today I cannot read my sub bullets, but I do have them on another sheet here. Um, when we talk about analyze, you start with what you've got currently and you identify the people in your network and what you get out of interacting with them. Okay. Pretty straightforward. What do you get out of interacting with them? But this is really what we're saying to you. This requires some introspective time, right? And introspective is really looking inward, right? Be prepared to have a frank and honest conversation with yourself. What are you getting out of the interactions with the people in your network? This can be very hard, to be honest, right? But you need to do it. You need to consider it. Makes sense? Questions on that layer, on that guide point? I said layer because it's the next bullet.
Mhm.
So the next bullet
Uh,
is delayer. That's my brain trying to like move me ahead. You need to kind of consider delayering. Make some hard decisions to back away from redundant and energy sapping relationships. All right. And I know you guys are scratching that in, but I want to kind of get a real quick introspection here. What is that? What is that kind of creating in your head when I say back away from redundant and energy sapping relationships?
got to cut those ties that are holding you back.
Mhm.
The
With a
people
negative.
that are in your network circle that are not a positive influence for that change, for that growth.
Okay. I will accept that, but I'm going to talk to it. But for anyone else too, is that where you guys were all thinking? Same line, something a little bit different?
I think it's where you're putting your energy into and what you're getting back from that energy that you're putting out there. I mean,
Okay.
when you're
Yeah.
thinking of making a hard decision and backing away from redundant energy sapping relationships, it's like the whole doing something in a circle and expecting that you're going to turn into a square now.
Yeah. There you go. Or how come I keep ending up where I started? That's because you're only taking left-hand turns, right? So yeah, so both. So Sean, the reason why I really dug what you shared too when we talk about cutting is easy to say,
Mm.
not easy to do, and maybe sometimes it's not a cut as much as understanding some other things. So let me put this in play. So for some of us, the energy sapping relationships are people that we love, right? Can't. My mom is tough. Like, stop talking, mom. Right? You're driving me nuts. Right? I can't cut her out of my life though. She's my mom. I love her. Right?
Right.
So, so to be honest though, in my network, and I will get into a little bit about what constitutes a network. It was the hard decision was that I put more structure and boundaries in that relationship. I know when it's not a good time to reach out and talk to her, right? And so I have to have more intentionality in how I engage certain people that are within my network. There are times that she's in my network for a totally different reason, but understanding and looking at it from that perspective actually outfits me and gives me greater power in controlling all things. Does that make sense? And I'm using my mother, but for a lot of us, I think when we think about it, we have people that have been with us for years and years, and they are close to us. But if truth be told, you may spend the majority of your time talking about things or saying things that actually do not elevate you, do not make you wiser for having spent that quality time together. And that's where you have to kind of be honest and frank and say, it could be a delayer. It could be just in putting some very stringent boundaries in to allow you to grow and move forward. And redundant, a lot of times this happened to me, especially in some previous jobs. I only was gravitated towards certain types or certain backgrounds. And so while those were not inherently bad, I was literally only two dimensional. So I needed to kind of start bringing in people that were not personality types that I would normally go to or would have backgrounds that I was not comfortable with. There's last night's attendee just walked by. He's heard this speech before. Um, and and I had to kind of look at it from that perspective as well. I realized that my network was really kind of lopsided to one kind of skill set or leadership philosophy, and I needed to do some of that, and that takes
Hey,
us to
Randy,
diversify. Yes.
Do you mind if I just add one piece to that?
Yeah.
Just for another example for that delayer, and this may resonate with some of you or all of you or none of you, but for me, it was learning to stop going to people that agreed with me, that I knew I could go talk to and have them, because I liked their personality. We got along really well. And I knew if I explained something to them about an issue or a problem I was having, I was right in their eyes. So they would just echo chamber back to me the things that I was already locked into, which, as you can imagine, that does not create change. That does not give you a different perspective. If anything, that has you double down on maybe some of the things that were limiting you and holding you back. So it wasn't, again, like Red said, it's not like I cut connections from those people altogether, but I would socialize with them and not necessarily use them in my workplace network. That's not, I changed their placement in my work life, instead of continuing what ended up to me being self-damaging, though they were doing nothing wrong at all.
I love that. Thanks, Greg. So diversification, right? I think we heard a little bit of that, even with Greg's perspective, and where I was talking about the delayer can lead to diversification. But think about your network from that construction perspective. What are you building it for? So build your network out with the right kind of people and look for energizers that'll help you achieve your goals. So energizers, when we talk about energizers, give yourself some kind of flexibility here to define that, right? An energizer could be someone that literally is your cheerleader. You can have, some of that in there. An energizer is someone that says, I just think, Lady Sam, that you haven't been asked the right question. I'm going to ask you this question that I know you're going to, process and noodle over. But in that process, I know you just become alive because you like to solve problems. You know, Energizers are things that where, again, when you engage with them or utilize them or partner and collaborate with them, you are operating on a higher frequency. Okay. So give yourself that expansive definition as you consider I'm picking folks based on their background, based on their relationship, and based on the exchange of energy. Make sense? Good. So
Mhm.
I want you to think about that. And then the last guide point, capitalization. Capitalize. Make sure you're using your contacts as effectively as you can. What when I say that to y'all, what's your first thought?
Communication,
Okay.
going
Further.
out, speaking to your contacts, like you said, having those ones that challenge you, having that person that keeps you on the right track, going to them and saying, hey, based off of my performance, what are you seeing? How can I improve? Like capitalizing on that thought process or on um their perception of how you are progressing towards whatever goal you've set.
Yeah. So thank you, Sean. That mindset for us when we talk about having a network is you really got to say, I have this thing. What am I doing with this thing? And so making sure that there's a communication cadence, a frequency. What I heard in some of the things that you were sharing, Sean, too, is have a purpose for going into those moments, right? That effective contacts isn't having you guys are too young maybe for this, but having a Rolodex of names, right? It's about in those moments of communication, is there a value exchange? And this is not in the slide, but this is a red ism. But oftentimes your network, you should think about it as managing an investment portfolio. What is the return for not only you, but for the people that are in your network? It is a two-way exchange of value. So as much as you might pick myself or Greg to be a network partner, and we have considerable experience and attributes that we would absolutely be overjoyed to share with you. The network is suspect if all it is take. So you need to kind of consider too what you might bring to the relationship, and in your preparation to continue the communication, be grounded in your value exchange. I know it's a bit of a kind of high level concept, but does it make sense? Miss Christie,
100%.
you got Miss
Yeah.
Christie, you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just got a lot of thought processing going on.
Well,
That's all.
we love that.
It's all good.
And that's why, you know what, I've had an opportunity to hang and talk with Miss Christie, and I know that's exactly what you're doing. And I'm checking in with you, all right? Because we're
hmm
going to get to that in the next slide. But these are the things. So this is an hour, guys. This isn't like, hey, I had an hour and I'm a networking aficionado. Networking is trial and error,
Pro.
I don't think
right?
that'll happen after
Yeah.
48 years. I don't
Hey,
think
it took
that'll
me
be an
many,
hour.
many years. And to be honest with you, I still think that my network is fledgling, that my network is in constant need of attention. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourselves. We're introducing this concept. Maybe it's the most you've ever talked about networking, but I am going to pulse check you guys through because I want these certain bullets to kind of rest with you, these nuggets to kind of find a place with you, not to solve, but to say, man, that's interesting, and I'm going to need to kind of noodle that. I need to work that over. So thanks for letting me
Mhm.
call you out there, Miss Christie, but it's because I love you.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about. We've talked about understanding you can't get there by yourself. We've talked about the facets of networking. We've talked about the role and the importance it plays, and we've given ourselves 4 guide points. Let's talk strategy. All right. You guys ready for some strategy? All right.
Yes.
So networking strategy, it's important. It's important to point out here that as you begin to map and plan out your network strategy, you should start with you, right? It needs to start with you yourself, knowing what you're about and what you bring. So look at that box at the top, the dude with the person with the headphones. I'm trying to be clever. That's maybe it's you, maybe it's me, maybe it's Greg. But the first thing when you're starting a network actually isn't about outward, it's inward. And so we started with that quote. You should always have a sense of purpose. What are you out there trying to do? Why is it so important? Why does it matter? And it says or, but I think that they work together. And why? What's your worth? What's your sense of worth? And to be honest with you, anyone with a hunger and desire is elevated worth. It's not about sophistication. It's just about yourself. And the reason why that's so important is, again, think about this, is you are looking to connect with somebody that's already rowing a boat. They're working hard. They got a lot of stuff going on. Yes, they want to connect with you. They'll never not want to connect with you. But it can be limiting if, as you reach out to them, that what they're presented with is somebody that's still not sure who they are or why they're even doing it. I will be honest with you, a lot of folks have been misguided to Greg and myself about establishing a network connection. And when I want to kind of find out, well, what brought you to me? Well, my boss thought it would be a good idea. My coach told me to do this. And I still make time for those folks, but it is an immediate kind of reality check. This wasn't something you wanted. This isn't something that you saw value in. And so even though it might have been suggested, no, this is you coming to me. And so when you guys go out to do your network, you need to start with a sense of purpose or worth. Okay. The other part there, the bottom box, before you reach out, is work-life balance. Now, traditionally here at the workplace, when we talk about work-life balance, we talk about the hours you are working and the hours that you shouldn't be working, right? That's really kind of very basic. But in a network, your network should not be overloaded towards one side. It shouldn't be an entire professional work-related network, because we don't turn off our human side just because our shift starts at 9 o'clock, right? So a network should have a balance of some sort of personal and professional. So that work-life balance in your strategy is critical. And so then you see on your screen the four, boxes there: personal support energy, personal development, political support and influence, and information and learning. So let me go through and kind of give you some ideas. We'll start with personal support and energy. Personal support and energy could be, counselors, family members, peers, friends, clergy. It's where you go to just kind of, hey, I don't want to talk about this really tough coaching or this project that I'm on. I go to you because you know who I am, as a person, my character, what I'm trying to accomplish, the family that I'm trying to support. You know, they know you at those levels, and when you go to them, there's no pretense. You don't have to put on a. You just need to be yourself with them. You should have that as part of your network. Does that make sense? I see Miss Heidi's giving me
Mhm.
that head nod, so I think you're right with us, right? I love that. When I look over at personal development, we're talking about those folks in your life that kind of occupy that mentor or coach capacity. It could literally be the coach you report to, or it could be someone who really kind of occupies the space of they work on you from a fundamentals portion. That's the nature of your relationship. They know what you're trying to do. They've got the experience to teach. They teach you from that perspective. This is where we're at, right? This is EmpowerMe, by the way. It's personal development. So from a network perspective, it's already a part of your piece, right? And actually, the EmpowerMe covers two corners, right? It covers personal development, and it'll also show up in information and learning. So personal development, looking at a coach or a mentor. And then, when we look down here at political support and influence, um, these would be individuals that are kind of at a manager level or what we call experienced leaders. So I'll pause here for a moment because, when we say political, some folks think political, but it's not always the same political that I might be saying versus what you might be thinking. So political in the very basis sense of the word is these would be people in this category that know people, and not just know people, but they know the right people for what it is you're trying to do. They have a vast network themselves. If someone just came to me the other day and wanted to talk about, hey, is it possible to get to talk to somebody about how we do these training sessions? And they got these little animations. I kind of am a big fan of media, and I just happened to say, well, you know what? There's a name for you. Go, reach out and contact Jennifer Slaughter. That was a political support and influence because my out, outreach is much vaster, right? I've seen a lot more people, so on and so forth. So when you're looking at this particular quadrant, you're looking for folks that have had broad access to many people, many things, or they have a rich history of demonstrating or executing at levels at which you're trying to gain access to and knowledge of and experience through. Does that make sense? So think of deep and wide. I think that was a Bible school song, right? Deep for experience, wide, like a manager's view is much wider than maybe a coach's view that's just limited to their team and within their pod. Does that make sense? And then I think my little pop-ups just stayed popped up on here, but information and learning is also just such an important part of your network. And I've got training and education here. I think there's one more, maybe workshops. Um, but this can really be both things you do or people that you work with, right? So there are a lot of folks that have relationships with folks that act more in the capacity of a teacher. you know hey, can I sit with you, Ed, and can you walk me through how to write a cover letter? Or Greg, can you sit down and teach me how to write a resume? And Greg's relationship to you is coming as a teacher, but he's part of your network, and you can utilize that. But education is a huge part of establishing your network. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's pause here. What I'm going to ask y'all to do is a little some activity. All right. So if you have paper and something to write with, give me a thumbs up when you are ready. I'm going to ask you to take your paper. You're going to make 4 vertical columns. At the head of each column, you're going to write down the 4 corners of our networking strategy. So the first column to the far left will be personal support and energy. Second column moving from the left to right will be personal development. Third column, political support and influence. And then that fourth will be information and learning. Give me a verbal nod when you have your column headers created. We're good? Pretty
Yep.
close?
If somebody trying to help
Yes.
my papers, come on, move.
I had to go find a pen real quick.
If
There
don't
we
run to
go.
Walgreens.
No, my daughter stole my pens apparently, so now I have a half a heart-shaped pen, but I'm gonna work with it. You got this.
I love it. All right, so here's what I want you to do. You have your 4 columns. Real quick, I need you to put a name of somebody that right now most likely fits the definition that you're already in a networking relationship with. Who are you most likely reaching out to for personal support and energy? Do you have a mentor, a coach? Put that name in there. Manager, experience leader, put that name in there. And information learning can be one of anything. It can be somebody that you've gone to for education, or maybe you are currently involved in some sort of training, workshop, skills growth, what have you. But I want you to go through as quick as you can and put that information in there for me.
Do you want the timer again, Red?
We will get to the timer function in the next step.
All right, fair enough.
And again, give me a verbal nod when you are done.
I am verbal nodding.
Verbal nodding. Love it.
Verbal nods.
Got another verbal
Yes.
nod. We're loving it. You know, when I'm in this presentation mode, it's so hard to see you guys. I have to stretch it. There you go. So then I feel bad because I'm like, I don't think I've called on somebody, and it's only because I get 4 squares for my
Mhm.
video screen. Miss Patricia, how we doing? We got it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I'm as
So-
close as it's going to be. So let's go.
Love it. Love it. All right. So the real quick question is were you aware you had a network? That is a network right there. So, you know, the soft golf clap, but let's not underscore it. You have there a rudimentary network that you may not have been aware that you had. You may have looked at those as singular connections, um, situational based connections. But the truth of the matter is, if you go into your strategy, you are starting already from a position of, I have a network. I have a network in personal support, personal development, political support, etc. Right? And pretty easy to put those names down. Yeah. In some cases, they were probably, immediate recall. Would that be fair?
Yeah, but other instances, I'm looking at it going, that name fits in 2 spots on me.
Let's talk about
True. True.
it. So it looks rather linear on paper, but there will be times that folks occupy multiple spaces. And so that's a huge kind of piece for you to understand. It's also something you should be aware of when it comes to, again, the give and take, right? So is it possible that someone occupies 2 spaces, but maybe in some cases you may start flirting with redundancy or needing diversification? It doesn't mean you're cutting someone out, but you realize is that coming to you for multiple things, am I missing something? So it's not like they're coming in hey, I'm sorry, man. I love you for your personal support, but you're kind of average on personal development. That's not what I'm saying. But what you need to ask yourself the hard question is, am I missing something because most of all of my growth and connection is coming from a very narrow channel? And what could I possibly learn by expanding or diversification? But I love the fact that you
Right.
shared that because that happens for a lot of us. Um, so now I'm going to give
Well,
you another exercise. All right. If anything, this helps me a lot. Draw a line underneath your 4 names. So now you've got columns in a row, right? Underneath for each category, and this is where Greg's going to put a timer. I'm going to give you a whole minute. It's a long time in a phone call. I'm going to give you a minute. As you look at those columns, you're going to write a name down of someone you'd like to start a networking relationship that you currently do not have. Give it some thought. The timer starts now. It just occurred to me that when I record this, and I am recording this, but because it's a screen share, it's a long, quiet pause of just the screen. That's why I'm talking awkwardly now to break up the pause of silence.
You
well,
need
that's
Jeopardy
why. That's
music.
why
I need some,
exactly. Yep.
yeah,
The Jeopardy music
I
is a
need to elevate
60-second
my
snippet.
WebEx game and figure out how to bring the music
And we
in.
are done. You don't
Look
have
at
to worry
that.
about any more dead air that didn't actually exist.
Mwahahaha. All right. So were you able to put names in your columns? Sean saying no.
I wasn't able to put a new person in my personal support and energy page or
Okay.
spot.
All right. Is that because it's pretty full?
Yeah, I would say so. And of course, the people that are already there are people that have already they've been put into that category for a reason already because I've had that interaction with them. So
Mhm.
it's really hard to figure out somebody new that I haven't had a lot of interactions with to really figure out if they would fit in the personal support and energy spot.
It's fair enough.
I had the same thing. And I was like, It's like, well, maybe that's because I'm just leaving it open for the right person to
Right.
fit into that spot.
Oh
Uh-huh.
man, that's posting.
As we network, we will
Exactly.
find new people to put into that spot.
The
You got this.
students become the teachers. That was pretty good segue right there. I like it. Okay, so I'm gonna still want to hear from Christy and Patricia, but on that particular column, totally understandable, totally, you know, fine and perfect. What I would say to you is, as you continue to assess, when we talked about assessing through the 4 guide points, look to see if there's redundancy in your personal. And so you might not know a name, but you might start to say, as wonderful as my personal support network is, are there redundancies there? You know, are there instances where someone who's close to you tends to maybe um, enable you maybe too much? Maybe you're just like, look, maybe I don't want to be enabled as much. So you start thinking, I think what I like what Heidi says is waiting for that right applicant. But if there's an applicant, what is the criteria to qualify for Lady Sanborn's personal support network? And that to me is very healthy. And it also is a great tactic to keep in mind. So totally good. Love where that went. Christy and Patricia, how about y'all when you selected those names?
Well, I don't really have names, but I like things that I want to maybe find, like for my information and learning is look on YouTube or classes of how to build self-confidence, how
Okay.
to maneuver for that. Personal support, maybe get a non-biased opinion and maybe actually get into some sort of therapy. Who knows? Like that's what I'm kind of like trying to
Sure.
figure out maybe the worth of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my thing. But that's where I'm at.
Miss Patricia.
I like that. I thought that was pretty awesome
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it, like you said, you're trying to work on um, your sense of worth. So then
Mhm.
your networking strategy has the goal of improving
Yeah.
your image of yourself. So then that's where you're fitting in all these other pieces on how to reach that goal. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
pretty cool. I like
it's
that.
well, thanks, but it just is the one thing that seems to be holding me back. So I need to work on that for sure. So
I'll go with
anyway,
maybe slowing you down, but you're not being held back.
yeah.
You're a force.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Thanks.
All
Miss Patricia, you're next. Yes, please take over.
right. Savior.
So with
Voluntold.
with my columns, I was worried because with the first section, I hadn't put anything under information and learning, which I think is important. So I did put that I would, because of course, training is what I'm looking at, is to look at possibly trying to network with money.
There you
Hmm.
go. Perfect.
But for the other columns, I didn't put anything. But I think the other problem, and for me, and this is where the whole networking has been a huge issue, is getting that first sense of purpose and worth, and making sure I clearly understand what it is that I want and what I bring to the table in order to be able to create the network I need.
Okay. Fair. And I love that. So here's what I want to do to kind of cap this slide is first, if you are, if you're going into this topic, is driving that kind of clarity of self-awareness to realize you have a rudimentary network that is most likely established by accident, by just the force of nature, or maybe you did start intentionally bringing people into your circle for intentional reasons, but that you have a network. It doesn't have to have, three people in each column. You don't have to have a person in every column. You can find at one point, I don't know if I have anybody in the information and learning. It's fine to understand though that you do have something to build upon. The second part of the exercise, and this is where networks can kind of run into their walls, is we will generally wait for maybe life or circumstances to give us the opportunity to establish a network. But in all honesty, you're going to have to really consider proactivity. And so sometimes the first step is to, if you don't have a name, because maybe you haven't been afforded the luxury of it being in certain circles or being exposed to certain types of leaders or people or educators, is to then boil it down to the essence. And I'm going to keep using Lady Sanborn's example about I'm going to have to, hire somebody, right? I'm going to post a rec, but then you start thinking about types and backgrounds and so on and so forth, right? Get a good idea of what that is, and I'll tell you what you do with that information is you just start within the circle you have today to say, I'd like to learn more about political support. And, and what I mean by that is how to influence people and get advocates around, so on and so forth. Red, like who would I talk to? Right? You might come to me, you might go to, one of our senior managers and say, if I was looking to grow myself in the realm of training, Lenny, who else might I talk to? Who else would you recommend that I reach out to? And that's how you start to gain access. All right. And Sean, I see your hands up. I'm going to get to you, brother. Um, and I want to just re-stress about a sense of purpose and worth. Don't overthink it. Don't try to get too sophisticated, and don't underestimate the power of just wanting something better for yourself, something more for yourself. You don't even have to be that defined. You know, you don't have to come in, meet someone for new and saying, well, I think it's important that you know that I have very defined,
Might not be
aspirations.
part of my group after
Yeah.
5 more minutes.
Let
So.
me,
Well, I
yeah,
can't give out applications to people first
right.
before.
But
Okay.
we just need to know that your desire is there. That's that sense of purpose. I have an overwhelming desire to improve where I'm at in life, to be challenged more, to contribute more, to find deeper meaning in the things that I do. That is enough to bond and
Red,
draw people to
can I
you.
just say I appreciate you so much for saying that, because I felt way overwhelmed, like,
Yeah.
and like they're all the wrong circles, like, not
And
influencing me in the right direction at all. But that just makes it. I just want to better myself. Period. And
so,
that's
Miss
just,
Christie, at the risk of embarrassing you,
yeah.
we talked. What did we talk? Was it 3 weeks ago? I think maybe
Yes.
we
Yep.
sat down and we talked. And so, for this group, I'm going to tell you. I won't tell you what we talked about, Sean. But we talked about. No, it wasn't what we talked about. Is that somehow, Christy, what you managed to impart upon me is that you're not sure where or what, but you do know this: you want something different for yourself, and
Yes.
that made me very open to hearing everything else you want to say. That is the essence of a sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That is the essence of the sense of purpose. So don't
Okay.
get tripped up in all the, do I have to give someone my 3-year plan? Do I have to kind of tell them what my salary base will be? No, no, no. Don't get lost in that. It's the elemental sharing of your sense of purpose that bonds us as humans and draws us to each other. Okay, Sean. I'm sorry, brother. I've kept
Sorry.
you in the wings.
No,
You come on in.
you're totally fine. I just wanted to say for all of us here, we were talking about who we put into these blocks, and for information and learning, I put Red and Zimba because and I feel like all of us should for
Mm-hmm.
sure, because we all took that step to say, I want to better myself. I want to figure out what I want to do with my career. So we signed up to be a part of this course to go through Empower Me. This is a training and education workshop. It is to really help us be able to dial in and figure out and ask these hard questions about ourselves, but then also get us ready to go. So we've already started that process, and definitely just remembering that we weren't told to be here. We all volunteered to be a part of this because we knew that we wanted something better.
Sean,
That was it.
very well said, and I'm glad you did, because I was going to call that out before we move to the next slide, just to say, hey, how many of you put down that under information and learning? How many of you were blank that forgot to put empower me? Because
Right.
because look at the other leaders you've had an opportunity to meet with. You already have a connection with those people that spoke about branding, that spoke about resumes, that spoke about all of the different topics that we've had as we've had guest speakers in. You've already
Yep.
got a connection to that individual, and that bridge has already started to have been formed. They might
Yep.
not be in your network yet, but you've already got that introduction taken care of where you can start from to start that dialogue and bring them in.
Right. I've already had a meeting with Mike Vayu after that. Like after having that session where he was one of our guest speakers, it was like a couple weeks later, I was like, okay, time for me to sit down with him because I want to pick his brain. I want to figure things out. I want to see what he has done to get to his spot and how that could better help me to continue to grow throughout my path as well.
Fantastic.
No, great
All right.
call out, Sean. Thank you.
Listen, team.
No
We
worries.
have 6.5 minutes. The next 3 slides
Oh
are
boy.
resource slides. They're resource slides. So I'm going to kind of move through them. I'm going to give you a chance to kind of take them in, but also know this: I'm sending this deck to everybody.
Oh,
So
thank you.
you'll be able to
I
take
was
that,
thinking
especially
everything.
the last 3 slides. You'll be able to take and steal shamelessly from. Okay.
Perfect.
So You guys now understand network, and you understand that in part of your network, you may have to start to kind of project and say, I don't know the name, but I know the type. I know what I need to kind of look for. But that's still just in that planning phase. How do you actually go out and start making those connections? And for some of us, that's not a simple matter, right? What do you say? How do I introduce myself? So, what I have here is two very basic templates that are actually tested locally and they have a high success rate. Greg and I both have received communication in this fashion from folks that were looking to establish a sit down. So the first one is when you're reaching out to a stranger that you admire, somebody that you've been like, hey, you know what? I've been watching John Hill or Brian Kenyon, Amanda Sharples, Greg Zimba from afar. I like the way that they move through. I think I need to kind of gain more from them. This is a fantastic first intro communication. You know, hey, Greg, I hope you're doing well. My name is Red, and I'm the Leadership Development Manager here in Oakland. I really admire your work experience with recruiting and the network that you've established here in Oakland. I'm interested in finding out more about recruiting myself because I want to own my own organization. See how I've read that? It's got flow, it's very real, not pomp, not fluffy, not stuffy. So this is that piece. All those little magenta areas, that's where you put in your stuff. Cool, you like? The
Yes.
other the other
Yes.
template is remember, so when I said that political part, you might come and ask someone like, hey, I know what I'm looking for. I just don't know anybody that does this. I don't know anybody that would have this information, but what I'm looking for is X. But I was talking to Red about maybe doing some media work for the training modules, and Red said, you should reach out to Jennifer Slaughter in training delivery content design. This template would work well for reaching out to that person who you'd have never met. They don't know who you are, but Red suggested. Does that make sense? Again, high success rate with this particular template of getting responses from people. And then the last resource is, oh shit, they responded and they said they want to talk to me. Now what do I do?
Oh my God.
So I got a
Send a
meeting.
meeting maker.
So what do I ask? These questions are really good to just help a conversation get moving. They're designed to get someone to open up and share with you. People generally love to share their story. So you just got to know kind of questions that help them kind of open up. These questions I personally am attracted to. I love them, but I also included the article from which I shamelessly stole. There is more information in there at the harvard.edu, and I want to make that available to you as well. All right, and
A
so
big one here as well that, oh, sorry. I was just going to say a big one that was on that list there was talking about your biggest challenges, which is always a great one. That was something that I asked my leaders as well. What was the
Mhm.
biggest challenges that you faced? But then the main part of that was, and what did you do to overcome them?
Yeah,
And I pull that back from like an interview question because that's what it comes from, honestly. We all sat in our interview and they were just like, what are some big challenges that you faced in your previous jobs and how did you overcome those? Like that's
right
a
on.
really good thing to ask as well with these networking.
All right, so I totally agree. I think you said it better. I always end up saying, "What keeps you up at night?" And sometimes people are like, "How did you know?" I am not sleeping well.
Whether or not the Sox are going to win the World Series.
Challenges just is more clean. We got 2 minutes. So here's what I want to share with you. I talked about this is a bittersweet moment for me, right? Um, been a long journey, been hanging together for 7 months. Um, and to be honest, this to me is one of those deceptively simple but incredibly hard programs. And the reason why is you have to do your shit on your own. You have to decide to get up and come to one of these meetings. You have to make that commitment. And if you look at this, and this is no disrespect to anyone that is not on this call, but it is a demonstration that not everyone is ready at this time in their life to make this progressive step in determining their outcome and determining their future. And so for that, I applaud you. and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you made this commitment, how honored I am. I know I speak for Greg, how honored we are that you allowed us to come into your lives and share our thoughts and be zany, crazy, and silly at times. But I hope you understand how serious we are about our most important asset in this building in our lives, and it's you. It's the people that we're around. You guys don't get a choice. You're in my network. I would be honored if you would include me in yours. Greg, what would you like to throw in here as we
I
close
don't
out
know.
today?
Your Sermon on the Mount is kind of hard to top there, Red. You got one of my lines I focused on last night, which I think is spectacular. Again, I'll double down on it though. Again, this group starts huge. Empower Me started with, you know, many double digits of individuals that were all interested in the idea of growth and self-worth and development and networking and advancement. Uh, Again, I will say, look around this screen for the people that have been consistently participating and have been taking this serious. And that is something you should be proud of. You should be walking away because you accomplished something. You accomplished something by going through this course. And this is going to allow you to take next steps to what you're going to accomplish. So, as Red said, utilize either of us, both of us. I promise you, there are going to be things you ask that I'm going to point you in somebody else's direction. But that's the whole point of networking, right? Is find somebody else who knows and utilize those people to help give you that guidance and direction that you need. Again, I just say congrats, and it's been a pleasure.
So, guys, I got three other things I got to quickly throw out there. So, I will begin to work on putting this recording into our YouTube channel so that you can come back and look at it again if you choose. I will send out this deck to the entire EmpowerMe team. So, look for that in your inbox very soon. And then, third, guys, I've been waiting for this really kind of this third cohort of EmpowerMe. We are the third group to go through, and I have expressed to Kenyon that what I want to do is put a focus group together that represents all three versions of EmpowerMe. Selecting those names is going to be random. I'm going to want folks that attended a few, didn't attend any, attended them all, so that we can get the best feedback possible. Now there's four things. I'm also going to send out our end of session survey that is going to be very similar to the first one you guys took that asks for an MPS score around development in the Oakland site. So please be looking for all of those things in the coming weeks. And then I'll close like we've always closed our sessions, man. We love you guys so much. Don't forget that we want you to keep moving, keep pushing forward. Guys, have a great day, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
great morning,
Thanks.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Red, you still got a minute?